Hey everybody, welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Herdmont Stadium, home to the Oak Mountain Eagles, where our game of the week is going to take place this Friday night, featuring Oak Mountain and Pelham, two teams that used to be in the same region, same classification. We now have a classification difference between those two teams, but still a good rivalry matchup, an in-county game, and one that's going to be exciting to feature here this week as far as Shelby County football teams go. But we're to the midway mark of the 2019 season. It's hard to believe that we're there, but we're 6 weeks in this Friday night, and then after that, just 5 weeks remain. So this is a big week for teams to get ready to go for the second half of the season. We have several teams that are on a bye week this week, 4 to be exact, and then we also have 8 games taking place on Friday night, but those are going to most of those are going to be out of classification and out of region contests. So not a whole lot to break down. This show we're going to do a little bit quicker than we normally would, but with those 4 teams on bye, that's going to be the first thing we talk about, their matchups last Friday night, recap what they were able to do in Week 5 of the high school football season. Then we'll jump in, talk about the 8 games that we do have coming up this Friday night, including our game of the week right here at Herdmont Stadium. And then at the very end of the show, as we do every week, another full list of our SCR Stars of the week, as we had several players stand out again from an impressive Friday night of region play last week. And it's been an incredible start to the season for several teams. Right now, we do still have 3 teams undefeated in region play. The Chelsea Hornets, Halina Huskies, and Thompson Warriors all sitting undefeated in region play. Chelsea 3-0 in Class 6A Region 5. Same region, you've got Halina sitting at 2-0, and then you've got the Thompson Warriors in Class 7A Region 3 sitting at 3-0 as well, 5-0 overall on the season. So we've got some teams playing some great football to this point in the season. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of those teams right now as we break down what we saw last Friday night. And we're going to start with the Spain Park Jaguars, a huge win for Spain Park last Friday night. A team that struggled to this point in the season, was on a 3-game losing streak, but it hit a tough portion of their schedule since their opening night win against Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. They bounced back last Friday, last second, for a 17-yard touchdown pass from Harrison Barker to Jalen Ward with 14 seconds left on the clock. And that was a game that the Jags led throughout the contest. It was tied early on, but for the most part, Spain Park led that game throughout. They didn't trail until 3:12 left in the fourth quarter, as Hewitt-Trussville scored 2 touchdowns in a span of less than 40 seconds of game time. So Hewitt-Trussville looked like they were going to pull off the comeback, win a miraculous game, but then Harrison Barker does what he's done so well this entire season for Spain Park. He led that offense right down the field. They scored that game-winning touchdown on a 17-yard pass that beat 2 defenders. Jalen Ward catches it over his shoulder in the very back of the end zone, a beautiful play that wins the Jags that football game, and that could be what sparks this team heading into the second half. They're going to have a couple of difficult matchups after their bye week this week, taking on the Hoover Buccaneers, taking on the Thompson Warriors. Those are going to be 2 tough games, but they'll have a couple of chances to close out region play with the win. And with injuries across this region, they have their chances. We saw that they could beat one of the better teams in Hewitt-Trussville, and what impressed me was the defense stepping up throughout that game against a very good Hewitt-Trussville offense. So Spain Park getting some momentum. We'll see if that can carry over into the second half, coming off a big win, going into a bye week. Then they get the Thompson Warriors. We'll see how they handle that matchup with, obviously, one of the best teams in the state sitting there at number 1. Speaking of the Warriors, they're also coming off a big win as well. Thompson, this past Friday night, a 63-18 win over Tuscaloosa County. So the Warriors have now scored 40 or more points in every game to this point in the season, averaging 48.8 points per game and 50-plus in their last 2. So this is a Thompson offense that's just clicking. A lot of people didn't know what to expect coming into this season because of the loss of Talia Tungavaloa, as well as Shadrack Bird at the running back position, and really the majority of their offensive line. But these guys have stepped in. Senior Sawyer Pate running the show at quarterback. You've got a 3-headed monster at running back in Jarrett Crockett, JoJo Gators, and Brandon Franklin. And to be honest with you, like, the receivers are obviously extremely talented. They have a ton of talent out there. But what's been the most impressive part of this team this year to get this offense rolling? We knew the skill players were going to be great on that side of the ball, but what the offensive line has done to come along and get as far along as they have has been arguably the most impressive and important part of this season for the Thompson Warriors. They're our last undefeated team in the county. They sit at 5-0 overall, 3-0 in region play. They go into the bye week this week. Then they get Spain Park, and then from there on, they have a tough schedule the rest of the way. They'll be taking on the likes of Vestavia Hills, Mountain Brook, and Hewitt-Trussville, 3 straight games there to close out region play. Those are all teams that have been highly ranked this year in the 7A classification. So if Thompson finishes undefeated in the regular season for the second time in 3 years this year, they will have definitely earned that mark. But right now, look like the best team in the 7A classification, still undefeated, sitting at the number 1 spot. We'll see how they handle things. All that momentum they've built up, they've got to carry it through the bye week and come out in the second half ready to push for a number 1 seed heading into the playoffs. And speaking of a team that has a chance to win a number 1 seed that probably nobody in the state expected, that's the Chelsea Hornets. They're sitting at 4-1 overall, 3-0 in region play, sitting atop the region standings to this point in the season. And that's a Chelsea team last year that won all of 2 games. And those 2 wins came in the 3 final weeks of the 2018 season. This year, they've already beaten that mark, sitting at 3-1 overall on the season. 4-1 overall in the season, 3-0 in region play. So this is a Chelsea football team that's really made some improvements. And on the offensive side of the football, especially this past Friday night, a big win over the Pelham Panthers. They win that game 64-38, and we did report that it was a school record, but I've come to find out that since then, Chelsea actually in 1972, I believe, put up 69 points against White Plains in a shutout of White Plains. But this is the best the Chelsea offense has looked in a long time, and it's coming really with help from both sides of the football, the special teams, defense, so all 3 facets of the game, and then the offense obviously playing well as well. So this is a Chelsea team that's clicking in that game against Pelham. They forced 4 fumbles, returned a punt for a touchdown, 91 yards, and Collier Blair goes over 100 yards for the 3rd consecutive week, puts 2 touchdowns on the board. So this is a Chelsea football team that's just continuing to get better and better. They've scored 32, 42, and now 64 in their last 3 games. An offense that struggled early in the season, struggled early last year, started to get clicking. This year they've been playing well from the start. Their defense has been the key to their success for the most part, giving up 12 points per game going into last week's game against Pelham. Obviously, those 38 points they gave up is going to make that number go up just a little bit, but at the same time, the offense showed that they could make the plays, even if the defense has an off night a little bit. But the defense still made big plays, forcing several turnovers in that matchup. So we've got Chelsea sitting at 4-1 on the season, after coming off of a season where they were 0-5 to this point last year. So an impressive job there for head coach Dustin Goodwin, the Hornets, as they continue to progress. They go into this bye week in good shape, come out. They do have a difficult stretch to go in the second half of the season. They'll take on their most difficult opponents, Halina, Homewood, and Minor, to close out region play. So we'll see how they handle that. But I can already tell you, a week from this Friday night, as they take on the Halina Huskies, 2 undefeated region teams, that's going to likely be our game of the week next week, and possibly the biggest matchup we've seen this year aside from Thompson Hoover. So that'll be an exciting one here in a week. The final team on bye this week, that's going to be the Montevallo Bulldogs. Obviously, had been clicking offensively, been playing some great football to this point in the season. We're 3-1 going into that game with American Christian last Friday night, but the number 2 American Christian Patriots, their offense has also been lighting up the scoreboard. And a game that was 21-16 early on, Montevallo was answering the call and seemed to be in good shape, but then you had American Christian that laid it on the rest of the game. They go on to win that one 84-30. So you saw Montevallo's defense has been the question mark all year, but you also had an American Christian team that was running up the score. You saw Montevallo last year in this game, a 70-54 loss in that one. They never gave up. They kept trying, kept scoring points late in that game. I think American Christian wanted to come out and try to continue to do that this year and show that they weren't going to let Montevallo back into the game this season. But credit the Bulldogs. They did bounce back. They did play pretty well late in that game as they continued to fight, had their starters playing some good minutes, and you had quarterback Malik and Bennett still go over 300 yards passing. You had Jamarius Carter and Kyle Cottingham both go over 100 yards receiving. So this offense is still dynamic. The rest of the way, I expect them to be in good shape to continue to outscore opponents. And you got a bye week now. They're going to shore up things, get things situated moving forward. I expect this Montevallo football team to be just fine in the second half. I think the bye week comes at obviously the perfect time after their most difficult game of the season. They should still finish second in that region and have plenty of excitement moving forward, get a good seed heading into the playoffs. So those are the 4 teams that we do have on bye this week. We've also got 8 teams that will be playing, or 7 teams that will be playing 8 total games. 9 teams will be playing 8 total games that we're going to break down now, get into all that. Then at the end of the show, we'll obviously name our SCR Stars of the Week. And we're going to start right now with our game of the week that's going to take place out here at Herdmont Stadium between Oak Mountain and the Pelham Panthers. Coming into this matchup between Pelham and Oak Mountain, neither team really playing the way they want to play football to this point in the season, but we've seen a lot of growth from each as well, specifically on the side of the Pelham Panthers. For the Oak Mountain Eagles, it's been more of just the most difficult stretch that you can possibly play in high school football, taking on Hewitt-Trussville, Thompson, and Hoover in 3 consecutive weeks. The Eagles, they sit at 1-4 overall right now on the season, 0-3 in region play, and the Pelham Panthers, they sit at 0-5 right now on the season, have yet to win a region game as well. So you've got 2 teams coming in just searching for any sort of momentum in this game. That's what makes it an exciting matchup. Not just that, but the fact that it's a county rivalry, 2 teams that used to play in the same region, same classification. And, last year this rivalry was renewed for the first time since 2013, and we saw Pelham put a thumping on Oak Mountain, winning that game 51-20, 52-21 last year. And head coach Chris Bell of the Oak Mountain Eagles told me before the season that this team was not going to let that happen again, that they had a little bit of extra motivation from that loss last year, losing to the 6A Pelham Panthers as a 7A team. Now, Oak Mountain is one of the smaller 7A schools around the Birmingham area, but at the same time, you know that they're still going to be bitter from that loss going into this game. Head coach Tom Causey at Pelham's going to know that as well. He knows that last year is going to add some fuel to the fire, and mentioned that as well. So both these teams are going to be ready to go. You can throw the records out the window to this point in the season because they're going to have that extra motivation of the county rivalry and the classification jump up and jump down there between the 2 teams. And if you look at the averages points per game, you've got Pelham playing a little bit better to this point in the season, scoring 20.6, giving up 37.4. And then you've got Oak Mountain that's scoring 17.8, giving up 38.7 points per game. So if you just look at those numbers, you may think that Pelham's a slightly better team, but at the same time, Oak Mountain is coming off that gauntlet, that 3-game stretch, and against their lone 6A opponent that they played this year, the Chelsea Hornets, to open the 2019 season, Oak Mountain shut them out 17-0, their first shutout in a couple of years, and this Pelham offense has struggled at times throughout the season and just lost to that same Chelsea team 64-38. So Oak Mountain should have the upper hand with the added motivation of last year's loss, playing on their home field, and also a similar opponent that they've beaten that Pelham could not beat. And if you look at what Pelham's done this year, it's been a lot of struggle on the defensive side of the football. Last year they really struggled. Last week they really struggled stopping the run against the Chelsea Hornets. Collier Blair reels off 170-plus yards, 2 touchdowns in that game, and had 100-plus in the first half of that game against Pelham. So this Pelham defense struggling at stopping the run right now, and that's all they're going to face really on Friday night in a week's preparation time to get ready for this Oak Mountain option attack, as they have quarterback Evan Smith, sophomore here at Oak Mountain. He can run the show, run the football. You've also got 2 solid running backs in Judah Tate and Jonathan Bennett. So this is an Oak Mountain offense that's going to be tough for Pelham to prepare for, with a bunch of young guys going up against something that they haven't really seen before, especially this season. They're going to go into this matchup having a tough time stopping that running attack. The good thing for Pelham, their offense took a turn for the better last week. Obviously their best offensive performance of the season. Xavier Langford, Gabe Gamble, a few others had some, Walker Lyles, a few others had some big games there on the offensive side of the football. And if it wouldn't have been for 4 fumbles on the offensive side, Pelham not only would have been in that game, they might would have won that game against Chelsea, but it was just a few mistakes, especially you give up a 91-yard punt return, you give up a scoop and score on a fumble, you have another fumble that 3 plays later leads to a touchdown. So if Pelham can limit those mistakes against this Oak Mountain team on Friday night, they're going to have their chances because this offense is starting to get better. And they're going to start to score more and more points as we move forward throughout the season. So I think that gives Pelham a little bit of a chance going into this game, but at the same time, like I said, that added motivation that you have for Oak Mountain, I think can make the difference here on their home field. We'll find out Friday night, but Pelham's going to have to shut down the run if they want to have a chance. Otherwise, we could get in a high-scoring game, or Oak Mountain could pull away. So we'll see how things unfold, but it's going to be a fun atmosphere, I think, out here between these two teams, a big county rivalry that we can look forward to and see how things unfold on the field behind me. Just continues to get better and better for the Halina Huskies, coming off obviously back-to-back wins. 2 weeks ago, they beat the Homewood Patriots in comeback fashion, 28-24. And then last week, obviously against Minor, a 28-14 victory. Led that game 28-7 at one point. Really played well throughout. The defense gives the offense chances there at Halina to pull out early, and they took advantage of that. Halina's offense has also continued to get better and better the last several weeks. Luke Samba there at quarterback running the show. Marquise Johnson continues to be a workhorse in the backfield at running back, and then you've got some receivers starting to step up. But as this defense gets better, this team becomes more and more dangerous. It's a defense that came into the season with pretty much everybody back from last year's team, and the last couple of weeks they've really shown why. And in the last 6 quarters specifically, second half against Homewood, Halina trailed that game 21-7 going into the break, but they only gave up 3 points in the second half, which allowed the offense to go to work, come back, win that game. This week they give up just 14 more throughout the entire game, so just 17 total in the last 6 quarters, and you've really seen the best of the Halina defense. So they're starting to get better. And in the second half against number 4 Hueytown earlier this season, they also played some really good football. So this Halina defense is getting better and better, and that gives the offense a little bit more confidence to make some big plays, and it's shown the last few weeks. Now this week, Halina takes on Southside Gadsden, a game they won 14-7 last year, and that kind of sparked this team to go on a winning streak and close the season in strong fashion. They won 3 in a row, and then they also won their last game to win 4 of their final 6 games a season ago, and that led to the confidence coming into this year. And now they get another chance to not only build off of what they've had in the first half of the season, but win this game, get some confidence going into that big matchup with Chelsea a week from Friday night. And this is a game that Halina should be able to handle. It's a 5A Southside Gadsden team sitting at 0-4, so Southside not as good as they were last year. Halina much better than they were at this point a season ago. You've also got Halina scoring 29.5 points per game and giving up just 21, while Southside scoring 20 points per game and giving up 34. I expect Halina's offense to actually have a big day, big night this Friday night in this game. I expect a pretty easy win, get some more confidence moving forward as they do look for that matchup. Chelsea obviously going to have a bye going into that matchup with Halina, so Halina needs to continue to build that confidence, have some momentum going in, but you can't be playing much better football than they are right now, even though I know the head coach Richie Busby wants his team to get better and better each week. I think they're going to continue to do that this week. I expect a big win and to move to 4-1 overall as they stay at 2-0 in region play going into that big matchup with Chelsea for a game that's for basically, I think, the region championship for the Halina Huskies. So a big 2-week stretch here as they do gear up for the second half of the season. Callier now sits at 1-3 overall in the season, coming into this matchup on Friday night against an old foe and rival, Bibb County. They used to be in the same classification, same region in 5A, and Callier comes in 1-3, and you've got a Bibb County team going into this matchup 5-0. So on different ends of the spectrum right now as far as records go, but at the same time, these two teams are evenly matched just about every year, and you know Callier's going to have some motivation. Last year they lose this game by 1 point, 34-33. And that was a Bibb County team, maybe not as good as they are this year, but still a very good football team, and Callier wasn't as good last year as they are this year. I do think this year's team is fighting a little bit more, playing a little bit harder each week, and that extra fuel plus the bye week going into this matchup on Friday night, I think that you're going to see a Callier team that's very hungry for a win. I expect them to come out, play hard, and fight in this game. The problem is I need to see them play 2 halves of football. That's been their problem this year ever since that start, 27-0 against Pelham in the first game of the season. They just haven't been the same team, specifically in the second half. They fought with teams early in games, played pretty well in the first half, but then in the second half they just don't have enough to be able to pull off the win. We'll see how that goes this Friday night against a Bibb County defense that is playing arguably the best in the 5A classification. It's the Bibb County defense right now. It's giving up just 12.4 points per game, and you've got a clear offense that's struggling to this point on the season, scoring just 17.5 points per game. So Clear's offense is going to have to take that next step, make some plays. They played so well in the first half against Pelham, and they've shown some promise since then. I know that this run game specifically can make some big plays, and that can open things up in the passing game for Clear as well. I do think you're going to see them put some things together. I think they're going to have a very good chance to win this football game simply because these are two evenly matched teams, I think. Clear going from arguably one of the most difficult 6A regions down to a 5A team. They've been battle-tested. I know Bibb County's played some difficult teams. Obviously, the last couple weeks, that hasn't been the case. Last week, they went 42-7 over Central Tuscaloosa, but they started off with a difficult path. They've been battle-tested in the 5A classification. We'll see how they handle the jump up to 6A, but I do think these are two fairly evenly matched teams, and if you judge by their matchups against Pelham, obviously Clear went up 27-0 in that game, held on for a 27-20 win, but Pelham almost had Bibb County beat. Bibb County beat Pelham just 19-17 and had to come back in that game to do so. So I think these are two evenly matched teams, but Clear, just judging from those numbers, has just as good a chance to win this game. It's a matter of them performing in the second half, believing in themselves. I think if they can do that, this is a team that's going to win this football game on Friday night, but they've got to show that and prove that on the football field. It's been a great bounce back for the Briarwood Lions after dropping their first two games of the season, including their first region game of the season. They obviously pick up Matthew Forrester's first win as a head coach 2 weeks ago, and then this past Friday night, I think arguably more important than picking up his first win, he and the Lions pick up a win over the Winona Dragons, a Winona team that was playing great football coming into that matchup, specifically on the defensive side, and we've seen Briarwood's offense struggle at times this year. But they overcome that. They get over the hurdle. They win this game. They led it 16-0 at one point, end up winning 16-7. So an impressive showing from Briarwood as they're now 2-2 overall with those back-to-back wins. More importantly than that, though, they're two region wins in a row as they sit at 2-1 in region play now. So Briarwood has really bounced back, answered the call early in the season. Now we're to the midway point, and they have a difficult out-of-classification matchup this Friday night against Hartselle. Now, last year, this is a game Hartselle won 14-7 in overtime. Briarwood's defense kept them in that. Their offense was struggling like it has at times this year. But this year, I think this team has taken a jump on the offensive side of the football. Hartselle went into that matchup undefeated. This year, Hartselle not quite as good, 1-3 overall. The big thing is that they are a 6A team, but at the same time, it's a Hartselle team that is struggling on really both sides of the ball to this point. They've given up 28 or more in every game this season on the defensive side for an average of 34.3 points per game, and then you've got their offense that's failed to score 20 points in all three of their losses. Now, their one win, the offense showed up, but at the same time, you're going up against a Briarwood defense that is always going to be one of the most difficult in the state, and it's not just the defense, it's the special teams too. They've blocked, I think, 3 or 4 total kicks the last 2 weeks in each of those wins. So special teams and defense is leading Briarwood to victories. The offense is continuing to grow. Freshman quarterback Christopher Vizina, he has stepped in. He's handled things. Even as a freshman, he's not putting up big numbers, but he's been able to handle the call and handle the moment relatively easily. I know there's going to be some mistakes there, but for a freshman to make the decisions like he's making, that's a team that's continuing to progress. You've got running back Luke Pruitt making some big plays. I think the only thing that hurts Briarwood in this matchup is being that classification jump up to the 6A classification. But this is a Briarwood team that obviously we've seen it in their last 2 wins. The defense is playing great. The special teams is playing great. The offense is going to continue to get better. So I think Briarwood has a very good shot to win this game. But more importantly, they're getting the momentum they need going into the second half. They're going to be in this game. That's all that matters against a 6A team, and I think they're going to have a chance to win. If they can continue the growth, continue the momentum, they're not just going to have a chance to make the playoffs this season in Matthew Forrester's first year as the head coach. They're going to have a chance at the region championship with matchups against Fairfield and Ramsey still ahead. The way this defense and the way the special teams are playing, they'll be in those games as well. You need to see the offense take some steps forward this Friday night in an out-of-classification game, take some chances, do some different things, and just try to get some momentum on that side of the ball. But overall, this is a great football team, and I think they're going to continue to progress and win football games moving forward. Can the Shelby County Wildcats win their first game of the 2019 football season this Friday night? That's the question everybody wants an answer to, and the answer is they have a very good chance. And to this point, there may not be any reasons to believe they have a chance, but sitting at 0-5 yet again, just like we've seen the last couple years, it's come down to games late. They've lost 4 games by 10 points or less now, coming off of a 43-34 loss to Marbury last Friday night. So this is a Shelby County team that's been on the verge. They've been on the verge for several years. The offense is playing such good football right now. It's the defense that has some cause for concern. But this week, this is where they have their chance. Moody, the Blue Devils, that's who they'll be taking on a road trip to Moody on Friday night. It's a Moody team that hasn't played very good football either, sitting at 1-3 on the season, but specifically it's Moody's offense that has struggled. They've scored just 10 points per game. They're also giving up 30 points per game on the defensive side of the football. So you know Shelby County's offense is going to score some points in this game. It's a matter of that defense stepping up and playing physical and tough and being better than their opponent, and this is a week that they have to do it because they are better than Moody overall as a football team. But if the defense doesn't show up, Moody's still going to be able to score some points, and that could be the difference as we get into a high-scoring game again. We've seen Shelby County be in several of those this year, and they haven't been able to make the plays defensively late to give their offense a chance. I think that there's a strong possibility that changes on this Friday against Moody because, like I said, this is a Moody team that scored just a combined 6 points the last 2 weeks and losses by a combined 70-6. So Moody's struggling right now. They don't have any momentum. I think that gives Shelby County an advantage. Despite Moody having one win on the season, Shelby County has the offensive power to score on this Moody defense, and I think that the struggles we've seen from Moody's offense is going to allow Shelby County to take that leap, finally play a solid defensive game, solid enough at least to be able to win a football game. So we'll see how it unfolds on Friday night, but I think Shelby County should pick up their first win of the 2019 season. The Vincent Yellow Jackets coming off another difficult loss, 28-20 to Thorsby this past Friday night. They now sit at 0-4 on the season, but we continue to see progression from this Vincent team, and that's the key. Head coach Lucas Weatherford told me before the season that he just hoped for that each week. He hoped that these guys would believe a little bit more each week, that they would grow as a team, and I think we're seeing that throughout this season. They've played better throughout those first 4 games, despite the 0-4 record to this point in the season. And we saw that last week, obviously leading 17-16, a chance to beat Thorsby. They come up just short, but yet again, they're continuing to progress. And this Friday night, going up against Winterboro, I think they're going to pick up that first win of the season. Going into this game last year, Vincent was in the same situation, had yet to win a game, but they weren't playing as good as they are this year. They weren't progressing each week. I think this year they are, and yet last year they still won that game 57-14. So it's a similar situation, and you have Winterboro coming into this game off of a win. They're 3-2 overall in the season, but they're a 1A football team. And I think just judging from last year, Winterboro was in a very similar situation last year to what they are this year. They had won a few of those first games. Vincent still won that game 57-14. I think you're going to see the Yellow Jackets finally pick up their first win of the season, and I think that lends its hand well moving forward because there's a couple more winnable games for them down the road. So an important week for them, I think, overall as a team, and really for the outlook of the rest of the season. But I've seen enough growth and progression to feel good about Vincent moving forward. Even if they don't win a lot of football games, I think they're taking the steps to be a good football program moving forward. So just two more games to touch on before we get to our SCR Stars of the Week segment. Those two games are going to be in the AISA and the ACSC. We do have the Cornerstone Chargers. They'll be taking on Bessemer Academy in this matchup. Cornerstone coming off a 14-0 loss to Pickens Academy. They now sit at 0-5, and this is probably the worst possible time you could be taking on a very good Bessemer Academy football team. Bessemer coming in off of a difficult 17-16 loss to Tuscaloosa Academy last week. It's a team that competes for a state championship in the AISA every year, but sits at 3-3 on the season. Two of those losses to very good out-of-state teams, while the other one coming a week ago to Tuscaloosa Academy, another ranked team in a tight battle. So you've got an angry Bessemer Academy team. You've got a Cornerstone team that just hadn't been able to put it together this year. I think you're going to see some frustration taken out from Tuscaloosa or from Bessemer Academy in this game. I do think Cornerstone's going to progress a little bit, get better as the season moves along. In the second half, they'll have some chances at some good wins after this game, but this is going to be a tough one against a very good ranked Bessemer Academy team. The Evangel Lightning, they'll be traveling to Meadowview this Friday night. Obviously, Evangel coming off their second loss of the season, sitting at 3-2 overall this season, but that was a loss to a ranked AISA 11-man football team in Edgewood. They lose that one 53-20. Now you're taking on another 11-man team, but this is an 11-man team in Meadowview that has struggled this season, 0-4 on the season, coming off a 59-30 loss to Ezekiel. This is a defense in Meadowview that's has given up 50 or more points in every game this season. Evangel's offense is going to have a field day in this game. Ezekiel's a team that Evangel can normally beat, so it's just hard for me to see Meadowview, even though they are an 11-man football team, Evangel being an 8-man team. I just think Evangel has too much specifically on the offensive side of the football for Meadowview to be able to hang close in this game. I think that offensive Lightning is going to pull away for an easy win in this one. Now it's time for another edition of our SCR Stars of the Week, and another week of region play has come and gone, and we have another week of players stepping up to help their teams in big games. And we're going to jump in because we have a full sheet of players to name off here after an impressive showing this past Friday night. We're going to start in the 7A classification, work our way down, and it's going to start again with Thompson quarterback Sawyer Pate, a guy that threw his first interception on Friday night. But what makes that an impressive stat is that he's thrown close to 100 passes to this point in the season, and just one interception in that game against Tuscaloosa County, a 63-18 victory over the Wildcats. He went 17-21, 294 yards, and 4 more touchdowns. He's been a touchdown machine to this point in the season, almost averaging 4 touchdowns a game. So Sawyer Pate continuing to get better and better as this season goes along, has helped that Thompson offense score 40 or more points in every game this far along in the season, has got the team averaging close to 50 points a game right now at this point in the season. So he's taken over for All-State quarterback Talia Tungavaloa and has stepped in and done some very promising things there at the quarterback position. Mike Petway, wide receiver there at Thompson. He's had a great season as well. The leading receiver on this team a year ago, one of the best receivers in the state a year ago. In this game, he has an 81-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and then also added 6 receptions for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. So 3 total touchdowns for Petway in that game, 100-plus yards receiving and an 81-yard kickoff return. So a very impressive outing for the senior wide receiver. Sam Reynolds is also starting to play some really good football for the Warriors. This past Friday, 2 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown, including a 72-yard touchdown catch. So Reynolds has made some big plays each of the last few weeks. Has been a big reason why this offense is continuing to play as well as they are. The Thompson defense also making some big plays throughout the season. That was the big question mark coming into this season. I know they lost a lot on offense, but specifically on the defensive line or defensive side of the football, they lost the majority of their talent. But we've had some big guys step up. Montage Cook this past Friday led the team with 5 tackles. So he led the team there. Peter Woods, 4.5 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. Jeremiah Alexander, 4 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. And Damian Ugbo, 3.5 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2.5 tackles for loss. So they had several guys step up, pick up some sacks, tackles for loss, and that's going to continue to help this Thompson defense progress moving forward. I think that's probably the biggest key in them winning a region championship, as well as battling for their third consecutive trip to the semifinals of the Class 7A playoffs. Moving on in 7A, Spain Park, the Jaguars, a big game and a big win for them over Hewitt-Trussville. Harrison Barker stepped up again on the offensive side of the football, and offense has been lights out so far this season, aside from one game against Vestavia Hills. And Barker came out this game 25 of 43, 245 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Both touchdown passes came in the fourth quarter to wide receiver Jalen Ward. One of those, the game-winning touchdown, 17 yards to Ward with 14 seconds left on the clock. So an impressive game for Barker as he continues to play some amazing football. And Jalen Ward, he just did just about everything he could at the receiver position to help Spain Park win that game. 6 receptions, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And not just that game-winning touchdown, like I said, but both touchdowns in the fourth quarter to help the Jags win that game 31-28 over the Hewitt-Trussville Huskies. Michael Callan's also a big game for the Jags. The running back there, he's doing some big things on the ground as well as that receiver. 9 receptions for 80 yards and 18 carries for 65 yards, so 100-plus all-purpose yards in that matchup for him with a rushing touchdown as well. So Michael Callan's continuing to play some good football for the Jaguars. The 6A classification, we have several guys to mention, starting with the Chelsea Hornets and Collier Blair, his third consecutive game with 100-plus rushing yards. He had 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and like I said, has now gone over 100 in 3 consecutive games. His health last year was a concern, was injured for much of the year, battled through it as much as he could. This year he's healthy, and it's showing. He's playing as good as any running back in the county to this point in the season. Also at quarterback there for the Hornets, Caleb Moore with one of his best games of the year, 135 passing yards and a touchdown there for Chelsea to really just manage that offense extremely well. So impressive showing from Caleb Moore at the quarterback position. And Michael Gibbs, 82 receiving yards and a touchdown in that game. So he had the majority of Moore's passing yards in that game. Michael Gibbs, he's continuing to show some promise as well, an extremely athletic and fast player there for the Hornets. For the Halina Huskies, Luke Stamba, a big game again, 3 touchdowns in that game, 1 rushing, 2 passing, as he continues to help this Halina offense get better and better each week. And in the last 2-3 weeks, dating back to the second half against Hueytown, he's just taking some major steps and is really helping this offense flow smoothly. He's had a couple of turnovers, but the amazing thing is the way he's bounced back from those, the way he's leading this team as a senior. I've seen some special things from him at the quarterback position, and a big reason why Halina is undefeated in region play. You've also got Marquise Johnson, a 21-yard touchdown run in that win this past Friday night, and you just continue to see good things from him as a power back that can really do just about he's almost a 3-down back that can do anything you want him to do from the running back position. The Halina defense also playing some good football as of late, held Minor to 7 points for the majority of the game in what I think was their biggest game of the year to that point. Obviously, the Homewood game, extremely important, and they played well in the second half there. So this Halina defense continuing to get better, a major reason why Halina is having so much success. It really makes that team it fuels the offense. It helps that team gel and play as good as they can, and I've seen some impressive things from them. From the Pelham Panthers, we've also had, even in a loss to Chelsea, the best we've seen their offense look this year. Xavier Langford, 16 carries, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground at the quarterback position. You also had him throw for 255 yards and a touchdown against a Chelsea defense that was giving up just 12 points per game. Coming into that, they put up 38 points, so an impressive showing from him. Walker Lyles had 4 catches for 129 yards and a touchdown, and Gabe Gamble, 19 carries for 153 yards and a touchdown, including an 80-plus yard touchdown run there for the Pelham Panthers. So an impressive showing from those offensive players there from Pelham, something I think is going to be key for them moving forward. If that offense can continue to flow and play that good, this is a Pelham team that could have a strong second half to the season. At Briarwood, they also pick up their second win in a row. Luke Pruitt, a big reason why on the offensive side of the football, 24 carries, 121 yards. He continues to be just a dominant running back there and is really the key to their offense having any success this season. I think he's going to continue to be focused on. That's going to open up the passing game for the Lions moving forward. And then on the defensive side of the football and special teams, they're also playing extremely well, and that's why they've won 2 games in a row. This offense is going to be up and down each week, but the defense and special teams have held steady. Obviously, the defense held Winona on several big stands in that game, goal line stands, 4th down stands. So the Briarwood defense stepped up, and the special teams continues to make big plays, both in the return game and blocking kicks and making big plays there as well. So we're seeing some good things from this Briarwood football team as they continue to grow, mesh, and get better throughout the season as well. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Shelby County High School Football Show. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's going to be another fantastic week of high school football. We'll see you here from our game of the week between Oak Mountain Pelham. Should be a lot of fun, but like I said, we're at the midway mark of the 2019 season, a big week for teams to get geared up for a strong second half run of the 2019 season. Can't wait to see what we have in store moving forward. But for now, I'm excited for another week of high school football. That's going to do it from here at Herdmont Stadium, but we'll see you here from our game of the week on Friday night as we get you ready for this big game between these 2 county football teams. We'll have our Facebook Live video starting right around 5 o'clock before kickoff, and then we'll also have our great coverage on Twitter and Facebook with our stories and coverage throughout the night. But appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you on Friday night.